down to Earth. It was during the early period of space travel, along about the year 2000, that this curious story unfolded itself. Spaceships were a reality, and expeditions had not only reached the moon but had gone on to the inner planets, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. But as for exploring the outer reaches beyond the asteroid belt, that was still regarded as a task for future centuries. Then came the emergency that demanded immediate action and pushed space travel ahead with rapid strides. Our planet Earth was suddenly alarmed when a strange space liner was reported in the neighborhood of the planet Jupiter. The wanderer of the skyways was first picked up by the giant eye of the huge telescope on Mount Palomar. At first, astronomers mistook the spaceship for another moon of Jupiter. One moon more could always be expected where the giant planet was concerned. But when the newly found object kept heading on toward Earth, the stargazers decided that it must be an asteroid with an eccentric orbit. Tiny planets of that sort were as common as extra moons around Jupiter. Many asteroids were of irregular shapes, so the chunky appearance of this newcomer was nothing unusual in itself. But soon the Great Palomar Telescope revealed the true nature of the mysterious spaceship, and the news was broken to an astonished public. It made the old flying saucer craze seem trivial. This scare was the sort that left no doubt. The unknown cruiser of the spaceways was certainly not one of ours. Even the latest in superliners had never attempted to go beyond Mars. Was this a marauder from the outer planets? Could it be coming on a mission from some other solar system? While the public debated these questions, the authorities raced against time. At that period, such things as space wars were as yet unknown, for no efforts had been made to invade other planets. Earthfolk felt themselves friends of the solar system and all realms beyond. They were horrified by the thought that some unwelcome spaceship might be coming our way. They never stopped to think how the Mercurians, Venusians, Martians felt about the way our ships had started to clutter up their skies. So our spaceships were not equipped for battle, never having fought one. The only answer was to arm some and do it rapidly. Overnight, every crackpot, harebrained inventor became a potential hero in the public view. Spaceships were outfitted with everything from jet guns to ramp rows up. From our Earth rocketed the strangest flotilla in all history, no two units armed alike. The strange spacecraft was close to Mars when they met it, as the size of gnats buzzing about an elephant. The ship from the beyond was almost a small world in itself. When some of the more daring Earth ships jetted in close to it, the great liner sent out waves of magnetic force that tossed our fleet about like iron filings. Next, they all came flying in to bash themselves against the huge ship's sides. From the wreckage of our warcraft, the occupants of the monster liner fished the crews and took them on board. Our men were relieved to find that the creatures from outer space were human beings like themselves. A strange folk, though, with tawny faces, fixed expressions, and silent lips. They wore short robes of a woven material that carried threads of gold and silver glistening from deeper colors. There was something barbaric in the splendor of the great ship and its furnishings. The people seemed like some ancient race, transported to the present, or more correctly, the future, since their spaceship was far in advance of anything that we could offer. Their eyes carried a quizzical expression as they studied the prisoners they had taken from the Earth fleet. Then, one of the strange people, evidently a leader of some importance, gestured for the prisoners to remove their space outfits. That done, the leader spoke in a language that had a peculiar ring, yet without a single word that was familiar to the average listener. He gestured to himself with his thumb and uttered the word Tarvis. Next, he indicated some of his Valanda companions and identified them as. Among the Earth folk, one of the ramjet skippers, Captain Blanding, turned to the chief interpreter of his group and remarked, This fellow Tarvis is evidently the headman of these Valandes. But can you make out anything else he's saying, Professor Dusenberry? Professor Dewsbury gave his gray-haired head a slight shake, then cocked it as he studied Tarvis. The Valandes Kieftian spoke again, more slowly. Then, to the amazement of every Earthian, Professor Dewsbury broke into an outpour of some strange jargon that made sense to Tarvis. Next, all the Valandes were chiming in and welcoming their surprised Earth captives. A tour of the spaceship began, the Valandes treating the Earthians like guests rather than prisoners. Their language led the tone of Sanskrit, stated Dusenberry, which, as you know, dates back beyond any other tongue on Earth. In fact, some experts claim that Sanskrit is a basic, primitive speech from which all languages automatically grow. So I talked Sanskrit to them and they caught the meaning, though their tongue is far more highly developed. Tarvis and some others were talking expressively as they conducted their guests through great vaults that were lighted with globes like tiny suns. There, sprouting from shelves that caught the bottled rays, were vegetables of unusual appearance along with exotic plants and shrubs. They left their planet thousands of years ago, related Dusenberry. Their world was threatened with a cataclysm and they took off just in time. Some impending collision from a huge heavenly body like a passing comet, of possibly the pull of another sun outside their own system. I can't make out which. Anyway, they witnessed the overwhelming of their world as they left it. They saw huge tidal waves miles high surge over their continents. They believe that some of the inhabitants may have survived among the remote tribes that lived in mountainous area. But they knew that it would be centuries at least before their world would be as habitable as before. Professor Dusenberry paused, shook his head, as he gestured in admiration to the calm-faced Valandes. These people represent a civilization far in advance of any ever known to our Earth, assured Professor Dusenberry. They towed from solar system to solar system, from galaxy to galaxy, always improving their mighty spaceship as they looked for a world resembling the one they left. They have never found one. Now, apparently, they are willing to try ours. Captain Blending spoke up promptly. Ask Tarvis if we can flash this news ahead, suggested Blending. There is still time for the Earthian United Committee to arrange a welcome for them. So the word was flashed ahead and approved. A few days later, the great space liner was orbiting about our Earth, looking for a suitable landing spot. At last Tarvis and his Astro Gators picked one. The ship settled its 3-mile bulk near the town of Newark, Ohio. And it was there that crowds came by jet, ships, planes, and helicopters to witness the arrival. Tarvis led the parade of Valandes who apparently had planned some sort of ceremony for this notable event. Which was not surprising, for it was the first time that any of their generation had ever set foot on the soil of any world. They couldn't have chosen a better spot for the gala ritual, because near Newark there are ancient mounds, built by some race that antedated even the American Indians. Through a loudspeaker provided him, Tegas spoke in Valandes, which Dusenberry translated through another mic. Tarvis is extolling the memory of Janger, the bearded one, stated Dusenberry, who sent the Valandes upon their mighty journey, telling them that someday, somewhere, they would find a home. All of a sudden, Tarvis raised his hand, flung some object that must have been a sunbolt. It struck the ancient mound beside him. There was a blinding dazzle, a miniature sunburst. When it cleared, the entire mound was gone. Instead, the amazed Earthian witnesses viewed a marble statue that the mound had unquestionably encased. It showed a man with the features of a Valandes, but with a long beard dipping to his chest. It could only be the man that Tarvis mentioned, Janger, the bearded one. Then as the Valandes broke into a mighty chant, all was clear. This was the planet that they had left thousands of years ago. The mighty cataclysm they had escaped in their spaceship was our flood. The Valendes had come down to Earth. They were home. The end. Please like and subscribe. Show your support. Thanks.